Welcome back to another episode of Thinking That Matters. I'm Elizabeth Mahusai, your show host, and I am here with a very good friend. I cannot wait for this conversation. I just have to tell you, this is Krista Medlock. So Krista, tell us who you are, what you do, and we're going to launch in.
All right. Well, I am Krista Medlock, and I'm the founder of The Girl Cave, but we'll learn about that. Before The Girl Cave, I was a long-term brand and marketing strategist. I tell people I started before, I didn't even know what brand management was. Actually, I was in college and I wanted to be a psychologist, and someone said, this may not be the field for you. And I had to scramble, spending all the money on my education and figure out what I could lead into, which was advertising, which then led me to a brand management career. And the rest is history. I mean, over 20 something years in brand management, new product development, marketing, and brand strategy. So you moved from psychology to, I mean, technically there's a lot of great psychology pieces and components to marketing and brand management, or at least I perceive that there are. Yeah. But what had you passionate enough to pivot and go in that direction? I actually, someone just said, a friend of mine has an internship at Proline International. So I'm not sure if anybody knows, that was a long time hair care company based out of Dallas. And I just decided I was going to try to figure out what brand management was, and I loved it. Like I literally fell into my career. It was the perfect career for me.
What did you, when you think back, you're reflecting back to those early days, what was it about it that had you go?
Creating, innovating, creating products. I mean, I started off in the beauty and wellness industry. So being able to create products for the market, they gave me a lot of responsibility too. As a little 19-year-old in college, they sent me to Florida and different places to rep the brands, and I got to talk to the consumers, and I got to create based on consumer needs. So being able to appease consumer need and get creative and launch something that could last for years to come in the product market.
Okay, what is a product maybe that you had a hand in? I don't know. Is it still on the market or no longer?
Yeah.
Give me a name.
There's a lot of products that I've touched. So like Tree Hut is one that's really big now. And
I know that name.
Yeah, it's a specialty bath product line.
Okay.
In fact, I was the first brand manager that Tree Hut was kind of getting to an antiquated place, and it was losing its position in Walmart and Kroger and Fred Meyer and all of these superstores. And I said, we need to make a change. I told the owner of the manufacturing company that we need to make a change. And I was the first brand manager to rebrand the product. And it ended up reviving the brand. And today it is thriving. Like it's thriving in food, drug, and mass. I did. I touched
that.
It. Yes.
That is so cool. All right. Yeah. So in your early days of understanding and learning brand management, okay, first off, I want you to give me some clarity here. What is the primary difference between brand management and marketing?
Oh, huge.
Okay. I mean, can you just give a kind of in layman's terms for those of us who we hear those terms all the time, but maybe my listener or my viewer is going, I don't know that I really understand what is different about those.
Yeah. And don't get me wrong, brand management is a layer within marketing because there are obviously marketing responsibilities and activities under brand management. But brand management is really, you're fiscally responsible for the financial success of a brand, the sustainability of a brand, the messaging of the brand planning. Where is it going to be most successful, and how does it thrive in those channels, and what is the brand promise to a consumer, and how do you deliver on that brand promise? So anything that touches the brand, that brings it to life and sustains it, through its product life cycle.
That's brand management. All right. So then if you were to give a definition for marketing, what would you say?
I think it's just the visibility and the messaging of well, not just a product line. At this point, you're talking about its distribution points and how it's articulated through the distribution points, how it's positioned in the distribution points, what it's like brand management, for instance, they get into the pricing matrix, right?
Okay.
It's like you're looking at margins and you're saying, okay, what does this product need to be priced at for it to get to profitability, the goals that the organization has set for this product line.
Marketing then, though, says, okay, this is our budget. How do we market the product to get it to those assigned financial goals? Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes. Wow. So you fell in love or fell into and fell in love with.
I love everything about building a product line.
That is so cool. So you spent years in the beauty and wellness. Mm-hmm. Where did you go after that?
So funny enough, because I think this is how we get into my my business ownership days. But when I was in my 20s, I worked for a company which it should not be named here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and I was a stickler. I was rebellious. I didn't like how things were going, and I wanted to exit, but I didn't know how to do that. The company was going in a direction I didn't necessarily that aligned with my value system.
Yeah.
And I had a conversation with the CEO of the company because he would always, not show up for my marketing meetings, and he wouldn't answer my emails. And I just said, I can't thrive professionally if I'm aligned with this organization. And I wanted to, what I thought was a mature thing to do was make a plan and say, hey, I need a meeting with you. And we both agreed. So I actually negotiated my exit out of that company, which was awesome because it gave me money for the next few months. And I called my mom when I got home and I said, okay, I guess this means I'm going to start my own business. She goes, you what? Like, what are you doing at 20-something years old? Why would you ever think that you should walk out of a job? But I did. And the rest is history.
And so you started your own business that was also brand management and marketing, but now you were representing yourself.
Consulting,
from a consulting standpoint. Yeah. And how many years did you do that?
I've always been an entrepreneur, over 20-something years. There were times where I would do like a full-time engagement, like a contracted engagement or service, like a fractional marketing person with an organization. But for the most part, for over 20 years, can't believe it.
Being an entrepreneur, a fellow entrepreneur, and knowing the challenges that entrepreneurism brings.
Yes.
So when you reflect on 20 plus years of entrepreneurism, what would you say were some of your biggest challenges from a standpoint of your thinking? Whether you would label them as limiting beliefs or just true obstacles that were standing in your way. Talk to me about those.
So can I split it in stages?
Yeah,
because
absolutely.
My thought process now is very different from being in your late 20s and early 30s. Because early 30s, I was like, I just want to make a lot of money, and I love my freedom, and didn't really think of the implications of being only like a one-person show
as a consultant.
As a consultant, you can only make as much money as you can do accounts, right? As you can steward an account. And that wasn't fun because you hit a cap. It's just like being in a corporation where you're not going to
grow any. Yeah.
Right.
It's just a different version of it.
Yeah. And so, I had to mature through that. I made a lot of great money, but there were days where there were times or seasons where I'm like, oof, this hurts. Like, I'd like to be making more money. So it ebbed and flowed, and not having that stability was very, very challenging to even consider what my future would look like. When people would ask me, where do you see yourself in 5 to 10 years? It's difficult to dream up something like that when you're constantly, you're in the moment. And I think that's all good, but it's not good when you're talking about financial planning and life planning.
Right.
So
yeah, so what did you do to get over that? Like, how did you break through the ceiling that you created for yourself as a solopreneur?
Well, I built the Girl Cave. Really, that's what happened. One day because many of my clients were women-owned businesses, and I wanted to do more for women-owned businesses. And I thought, okay, let's start to do more. Let me see how I can do a little bit more for organizations, so that the additional stream of revenue, if you will, were the Girl Cave events. It was not the enterprise that it is today. It was just to be able to do events to support women-owned business, brand activations.
Right.
So that was an additional stream of revenue. I was like, okay, I can still consult. I can do my full-time consulting, but I can do these events as well and start doing something to promote women, right? So I thought, okay, it's serving purpose, but it's also an additional stream of revenue. And then, as the Girl Cave grew, those events grew, I was like, okay, there's something to this. And, I know we're going to talk a little bit about my faith journey, but there's some confirmations in this journey that said, this is supposed to be more than your side hustle. You've got to steward it properly. You need to build this business properly, and so COVID hit 1 year into those events. Like we did 4 of them, 1 per quarter. And it was time to get serious. I was at home. We couldn't do the in-person events. I was consulting a little bit, but I was like, okay, what's next?
Yeah.
Because this additional stream of revenue, this security blanket is not there.
Right.
And then of course, when you talk about the other side of this serving purpose, what do you do? Like if you can't execute in the ways that you want to execute. So I had 3 years of time to think, and a lot comes through when you sit down and soul search and say, what do I need to do with my life? What do I need to do with my business planning? How can I mature as a business owner to sustain this big, lofty vision and purpose that I have on my life? And so that's really what COVID, when people complained about COVID, I was like, this is the best time of my life because it gave me creative time. It gave me time to really, it was fun to me to be able to actualize on paper what I could do from that point on with my business.
So for the person, there are going to be people who listen, whether it's in America or in other countries, they're going, what is the Girl Cave?
Yeah.
So give us the the overview of what is the Girl Cave.
Yeah. Well, it is a platform for women business leaders and entrepreneurs. And so what that means is we do a lot to support women-owned businesses and women-led initiatives. Let me just say that.
Yeah.
I'm very careful because when you think about the back end of what we do, which many people don't see, as we are a media company in its traditional sense. But as you know, when you say media to the common person or individual, they're like, oh, social media. They don't really get that. But I mean rich media platforms where we provide opportunity for thought leadership, voice for women business leaders and entrepreneurs. So that could be through any number of ways. It could be through TV. It could be through radio. It could be through print. It could be, through written, digital written pieces and things like that. And it could be through social media. And so we offer opportunities for women to lead across all those different platforms. And we give them an engaged community, an engaged audience that they would, they customarily would not have.
It'd be tough for them to gain. So at what point did you start back the in-person events?
2023.
Oh.
Yeah. And I remember we have not stopped since.
No, you haven't.
We have not stopped since.
No, you haven't.
Not stopped since.
And so when you think about the Girl Cave, I remember us sitting down in Sweetwaters and you were sharing the vision with me and we had this great conversation around it. And when I think about a visionary that I would consider yourself to be a visionary, means that you're going to engage with a lot of people who are going to be naysayers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I want you to speak to this because there's going to be someone listening or watching where they've got this idea. Mm-hmm. They're a visionary, but all they're hearing is, why would you do that? Like, who's going to do that? Who's going to pay for that? Like all of the things. So speak to that, please.
Yeah. Well, I have to preface this by saying I've always been a rebellious spirit.
You did say that when you had your first job.
I have always been the one that wanted to be a disruptor. I have always wanted to be the one to innovate. And I've always been the one thinking well ahead of my time. Product, concepts, ideas, they've always been bigger than me and always been well ahead of even sometimes where the market is. So I'll have to say that my risk level is
high.
Yes. Yeah. But what I would say first is that's why purpose is so important to me. I think you probably know that about me. You have to really understand your purpose and your identity, and you focus on making sure that you're in alignment with that every single day that you wake up. And I think when the naysayers come, it almost becomes a challenge. Like, well, watch me, Because if you're fixed in that, there's nothing anyone can say or do that's going to remove you from that, right?
That is so true. And why, to your point of purpose and identity is so important, because then it truly doesn't matter what anyone says. It is that 1 Corinthians 15 verse, be steadfast, immovable, always abounding, right? Because you know who you are and you know the purpose for which you were placed here on earth. And so articulate for us, what is your purpose?
Yeah. Well, I know that I'm supposed to serve women, and I know that now, of course, that's evolved in how I serve. I thought it was just creating opportunities for women to build business, but it's going back to what my original heart was, even when I was like in my early 20s, is that I want to impart worthiness, and not in a traditional sense. It's not just personal worthiness. It's worthiness of having, a realized dream. It's worthiness of having the life that you want. It's worthiness of having, an upright posture that is unshakable. It's worthiness to speak your mind and to cultivate whatever leadership approach that it's just worthiness to be in your own skin. And I've always wanted to help women do that. It's just, it's difficult to say, hey, we're going to have an organization that talks about worthiness. You just create platforms that provide
the opportunity.
That opportunity. Yes.
Yeah, that's so good. And thinking about identity, because both of those are, again, to your point, very important. What would you say has been, I don't know if you want to say single most, but what are some of the important aspects of you being strong in your identity?
Yeah. So every hardship that I've ever had, and I'll tell you, most of my hardships, I have to admit, have been people. I've had life challenges, obviously. I've had family challenges. But my biggest heartbreaks have been grieving what I thought were unfair relationships, or what would be considered, I guess, betrayals, because I never understood. I don't have events in my life. Like, I don't argue with people. I don't have, fights per se with people. So when there's a disruption in a relationship, it's usually really unclear, like, as to why, how do you get here, right?
Yeah.
So for me, it's learning the hearts of people and understanding the hearts of people. And being able to accept and give grace, even if there's a severing of relationship, or even if it's a new relationship that you just won't be able to cultivate. And so I think I've been on a journey of learning how to love, especially with the Girl Cave, with so many people that you interact with on a regular basis, where your sole responsibility is to keep women intact and to uplift them, knowing that they're human and that I have to extend grace, learning how to love people even when it's a challenge to do that. So
I'm listening. I think
the world is laughing too.
I am not laughing at you. I'm literally allowing your words, like the weight, because the weight of your words are so weighty, right?
Yes, they are.
They remind us that it is important. I mean, we are called as believers in Christ to love other people, and also to think of, literally, as you finish that thought, in my mind, I'm like, and that is one of the hardest things.
It is the hardest thing
we will do this side of heaven.
Yeah. It is. It is. When people say, what are your business, when you talk about business, when they ask me what my biggest business challenges are, it is not scaling. It is people. It is navigating people. It really is. We'll scale and we'll grow that business. It is learning how to continue to be a strong brand for any kind of person, any person.
And it's tough. It's tough. And I also, so I want you to speak to this from a leadership standpoint, because that's really my space. I absolutely love existing in the leadership space. And I believe that most leaders, if they had the opportunity to admit that this right here that you're talking about is so challenging, whether it's the call to delegate and they are struggling because will the ball get dropped?
Yeah.
Or it's the thought process of, why can't you just do it like me? Yeah. Why can't you get your stuff together? You know. Yeah. So speak to this from a leader's perspective on because you're leading a board of the Girl Cave. Yes. You're leading people that are members of the Girl Cave. So speak to that.
Yeah. Well, is the question is how am I doing it every day? That's a faith journey, a tremendous faith journey. But I would say for anyone listening and wondering how I do it it's not necessarily taking responsibility for other people as much as it is taking responsibility for yourself.
That's so good.
And I always, even in situations where I may not be wrong, because I am wrong often, what is my culpability in this? There's always something that I can take responsibility for in a situation. Like, what is my ownership in this? I think too often we're putting out fires and everything else, but I do first look at myself and say, okay, what did I miss here? Was it something that I missed? Is it something that I said? Did I create an environment where someone felt like they had to act out or do, you know what I mean? Like, I'm always looking at it very dimensionally in terms of what is my piece in this.
Yeah.
And then the second thing is that when responding to it, and I'm very serious about, and no matter how alarming the offense may be or the leadership, the challenge on the other side that needs to be addressed, is always going into it with composure. First, representing myself in the way that I want to be, considered as a leader. I want to be a leader of compassion, and I want to be a leader of composure and a leader that treats people with kindness and compassion. So just going into it, making sure that I'm not stepping out of those boundaries for my myself, because nobody feels good about handling things poorly. You don't feel good, and the person on the other side doesn't feel good. But also, how do I keep this person intact? Like, when they walk away, they should know that they're being corrected or we're talking about something serious, but at the end of the day, it should still be that they walk away feeling responsible, but not insecure or, you want to keep them intact. You don't want anybody feeling like, oh, they just chewed me up and spit me out. Like, I just hate to hear that when you hear about sometimes, you having some tough conversations and they feel like they've been patronized or they've belittled, or I just never want to be a leader that makes anyone feel that way.
So I love what you just shared, ownership, which the word that I would put alongside that is responsibility, like really thinking about what is my responsibility? Yeah. What is this person's responsibility? But ultimately owning some portion of that. And then you said number 2 was composure. So first representing yourself well as someone with compassion, who's willing to do what is necessary to try to keep the person intact. Yeah. So something that I have noticed, and you saying this, I wasn't sure that this wasn't part of my thought process on what we would talk about, but I think this is such an important piece. We are living in such contentious times. Yeah. Everybody, I should be careful. Many people feel they have a free license to exert opinions, to keyboard warrior, to blast or attack or express their opinion.
Yes.
This idea of being able to maintain your individual composure, be compassionate, and still have crucial conversations. What would you say helps you? Because I recognize composure for some people, they're thinking, okay, I get that. But then they're like, but practically speaking, how do I not go off when, you know, and one thing that I, as an observer of Krista in the, you know, in the settings that I've been able to observe you in, you do live out the composure piece.
Oh, thank you.
And so I get practical here. I don't, whether it's what are you saying to yourself inside or what preparation do you have going into an interaction? Give me some specifics.
So if it's a situation that's coming at you impromptu, because you don't always, you can't always plan to have.
Amen to that.
to have a situation. I will tell you, the heart is beating, and let me just make sure everybody knows I'm not Superwoman. The heart is beating. I'm having every ugly thought that you can possibly think of. I still am human.
Right.
I really, really do. But I can tell you this, when I was a teenager, even into my early 20s, I would spout off. I mean, I remember I was at church with my mom, and this lady, I was spouting off to my mom, and she walked up to me and she said, I would be so embarrassed to have you as a daughter. And this was at church. Wow. And so, you know, this may not be helpful to everybody else, but, well, no, it is. Number one, everybody is watching. Okay. And I'm not saying that you should be concerned about people watching. That shouldn't be the reason why you make your choices. You should make your choices because it's what's right. But on the other side of that, as people are watching, they're reconciling themselves and their behavior and how they respond to things and hard conversations and hard situations. And we are responsible to a certain extent, the type of messages that we send to other people. And so if they see a leader of someone who cannot control themselves, it gives other people permission to say, well, you know, she's a leader of this group with these women business leaders, and if she can do that, then I can do that. And that's not okay. I mean, you do have a responsibility for others and what you're teaching them about, you know, life and situations. So I think part of it is just feeling extremely responsible for that. But also, I love me. I love me. What I don't love me is when I do something like that, even if it is warranted. I don't like me walking away from that. That's a worse feeling to me, is to walk away and not like how I handled a situation or how I treated somebody. And most of us can probably attest to this. We may say, yeah, I gave them my piece of my mind, but did you really feel good after that? Yeah. Most of us don't. Most of us don't feel good about, you know, hurting somebody's feelings or just spouting off.
Yeah, that's an excellent. I love the way that you said that. I love me, and the way I wrote it is, but I don't love the version of me that handled it that way.
Correct.
Because it reminds us that, like, I know for myself, I'll speak for myself. It reminds me that I'm not as far along as I'd like to think that I am.
Well, I mean, now, the world is getting tougher. It is getting more audacious. Let me just say that.
That's a great way to say it.
It is getting so audacious, and it is testing the limits of everybody, which what you're doing is amazing in terms of leadership. We need to bring that back, because that kind of alignment and understanding and service-driven ideal is going to keep people from losing
off the deep end. It's very much, what's been on my heart of late is civil discourse. Like, how can we, like, for example, to think about the things that you were talking about, to compose oneself, to have compassion. Well, the best way for me to develop compassion is that I'm actually able to have an authentic conversation with someone that thinks differently, believes differently, feels differently, where I can hear what is underneath that. Now, that doesn't mean that I have to agree with where that person lands.
Right.
But it does give me the opportunity to have better compassion because I'm not just making assumptions about things. And what's interesting as I'm verbalizing this and thinking about what you were saying, so I want you to respond to this. This is what I think is coming together in my mind. Those who don't have a clear purpose, who don't fully understand their identity, struggle to engage in authentic conversation with people who are different from them because they don't have a strong, steady foundation. Tell me what you think.
I absolutely agree. And I think that's what's happening now. We have a lot of bandwagon society members. Everybody is just gravitating to the place that it's not even a place of safety. It's a false sense of security. They don't want to feel left behind. They don't want to feel left out, or they don't want to be on the other side of gross, treatment or judgment. So instead of saying, I have a differing opinion, they're accepting opinions that really aren't aligned with their value system. And then that creates a whole another level of intensity, anger, spouting off. That's when you talked about
resentment, keyboard warrioring. Yes. I'm grateful for the conversation, because I think that lays such a great foundation for the value. Going back to what you were saying, the reason why you created Girl Cave was, like, the purpose of it was to help women see the worthiness of where they are, and quite possibly in those opportunities to better understand their purpose, or to connect with their true purpose. And in doing so, more clearly understand their very identity.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
That's really good, because the core values of the Girl Cave are selfhood, sisterhood, and livelihood.
Yes.
And that's basically like an ecosystem of the world.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Or even
it should be.
Right. In an ideal space, right. Or even within a family, right. Of understanding who I am as what should be a contributing member of the family.
Yes.
To how I engage with the rest of the family, to how we contribute as a whole from a family standpoint. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Like we could write a book on this.
Yes, we actually could.
Because I just think we're entering into a time where it is so easy to bandwagon.
Yes.
I appreciate you saying that.
It's very easy.
A bandwagon society.
But you know what I'd like to encourage people that are listening is I do believe that disruptors will prevail. If you think about throughout time, people that have changed the world have always been the ones who were the outliers. They've always been the ones who weren't afraid to be the only one standing, right?
Yeah.
On the other side and being set apart. I tell people it's not the popular seat, but it is the seat that's going to build populace. Like, it's going to create communities and new thought, and it's going to change things. And I don't know about you, but that's exciting for me.
It is exciting. I just got chill bumps because I'm just thinking about, who's like fresh on my, you think about, I love that you were saying the disruptors prevail. I thought about the ripple effect.
Yes.
Right? It does create a ripple effect.
Yeah.
And it is that willingness to stand. Yeah. I believe that the disruptors are willing to stand when they know who they are.
Correct. It goes back to,
And their purpose is so strong.
Yes.
That it is worth if I got to do it alone, or at least to start it alone, right? That's so strong.
You know what I do? You asked me this earlier, but I just had kind of a thought in my head when I've had challenges with this thought, right? When I've been in my alone time, when I've had weekdays or just days of overwhelm, and I think about times where I went with the grain, right? Because I thought that maybe I had a weak moment, or maybe I just needed to keep the peace, or and let me just say that doesn't come too often, so it's very uncomfortable for me. But when I have done that, if you can just think about what you're feeling in those moments when you're being disingenuous to yourself, like, just take a moment to really think about the moments where you felt most uncomfortable around certain people, around certain situations. Even if you're at a job that it's just, those are signs, they're telling you that you're off course, and it's actually, it's trying to get you to take action.
Course correct.
Yes. And I don't think we do enough time alone to really think about that and reconcile those. and take the step forward to course correct and to make those changes. So I would just say that it's easy for me to say it because, again, I'm rebellious, but I think everyone should be spending time with themselves to really think about the moments where they just felt out of alignment with self. And what were those moments and what was that associated with? And really think about, how do we make that change?
I agree. I think that there is we live in a very noisy society. Mm-hmm. And I talk about this when I talk about the brain aspects of what it takes to have transformation in one's thinking, that we have to create space to think about what we're thinking about. Yes. And when we can always have our phone, the television can always be on, the radio, or, a podcast, or an Audible, or, how often are we just thinking about what we're thinking about?
Right.
Or taking the time to reflect on our day, or the time to prepare for our day that doesn't involve an electronic device or someone else in our ear.
Right.
Ugh,
it's important.
It is so important. Well, I definitely have to have you back on because we could go for another hour, which is what happened the other day.
Yes, we tend to do that, actually.
It was awesome.
Every meeting.
It was awesome. Share with the audience how faith has played a role in your development to get you to where you are now.
Well, I'm going to say this. I could not be here today without my faith. That is, to God be the glory for everything that I have become, everything that, all the provision, everything. I could not do this without him. And let me just say, my faith has evolved. Before it was, I didn't even know why I was joining a church. I didn't know why I believed in Christ, but that was something that we did as a family, right? It was that my mom said, we're going to church. Yep. You're going to participate in church. The first time where I had to actually call on Christ for my first, real big challenge, inward challenge. I didn't even tell my parents. I just needed his help, and I didn't know where to go. And I called out to him, and he showed up to me, and he showed me, who I was. He comforted me. He also gave me what I call that power to be individual, meaning, I never had to be status quo. I never had to be in big groups. Or at that moment, he said, "Okay, I'm walking you through this life." And of course, throughout my life, I've always had prophetic word or things imparted in me. But what I always go back to is that first moment when I actually experienced him hastening to me in the moment where I needed him. So he is everything. I ask him everything. I ask him what I should wear. I ask him, I'm figuring out my new food journey, right? I ask him what to eat. That dependence on him has become the center part of my faith, even in the smallest things. Even when I don't have a prayer, I don't know where to go in scripture, it's still a conversation of Lord. Yeah.
This is where I am.
Yes.
When you were talking about you said you called out to him, I literally thought of Jeremiah 33:3, call to me and I will answer you and tell you great and unsearchable things that you cannot know.
Yes.
Right? And that is, but he wants us to be dependent on him. He absolutely wants us to be dependent on him.
Well, I've kind of gotten to the point where I don't want to do it without him. I don't want to live this life without him. And in fact, feel powerless without him.
I love that. So, okay, we talked about a lot of things. I ask every guest why you believe it's important to cultivate thinking that matters. Yeah. What say you, Krista Medlock?
Yeah, well, we've talked about a lot of things, but the thing that we should know now is it's important to be vigilant about your own personal growth, your own personal, your mental well-being, and, really taking that time for self-awareness in terms of where you are in that pendulum of healthy thinking versus not healthy. No one's going to do it for us. Yes, there's a million coaches out there. There's a lot of different vehicles, but the responsibility is within ourselves to champion that for ourselves and want that for ourselves. So I would just say that there are too many distractions and things not to carve out the space and time, to your point, to make sure that we are always aligned with healthy thinking and calibrating and become mature enough to know when we are not in a healthy mental.
Yeah, that's a good point, because oftentimes if we recognize we're not, or I should say, if we recognize we're in an unhealthy thought place, that's where you reach out to the coach, to the program, to the, because I experienced that myself. Last year, I just recognized I was not in a healthy mindset around what I was eating, exercising. I was not liking how I was feeling.
Yes.
For those of you listening, this is just a shameless plug to tune into what they don't tell you when you get into your 50s. Okay, so there's that.
Yes.
But what I recognized is I needed mindset support.
Yeah.
As it relates to my eating, my working out, all of that. And it was because I knew I was capable of better.
Yes. Yeah.
And I engaged, and guess what? It helped me to kind of snap back in to where I needed to be. And it was such a difference. I love that. That is so good. Okay, so if you're watching this, that's where you hit the back arrow and you listen to Krista again so that you can just anchor, soak that in about the vigilance of where we are, right? Because we have to have a self-awareness and a willingness to admit that we aren't in a healthy mindset. Yeah. And then we'll know better how to go and get the help that we need, or to ask for the help that we need. Outside of ourselves, because the challenge is we might recognize we're in an unhealthy place, but we keep trying to fix it ourselves.
Yes,
and that's where it just gets bigger and bigger.
Yep,
most of the time.
Yes,
most of the time.
Be still, be quiet. Be still, be quiet. Really.
Well, and think about that. Is it Psalm 46:10? Be still and know that I am God. Yeah. I will be exalted among the nations, right? I mean, but we don't have a lot of stillness these days unless we're really proactively working on it. Well, thank you so much for your time. I want to encourage you listening or viewing, be sure to subscribe to the podcast. Subscribe to my YouTube channel if that's where you're watching it. Leave a comment. What was one thing that really stood out to you, whether it was about Krista's journey or her encouragement to us around purpose and identity? And then continue to be sure to tune in for Thinking That Matters, because when you cultivate thinking that matters, you live a life that matters.